online sex, video games, TikTok, should they be regulated? And that rejoins another question that's asking, what are the US parties, either of them, doing anything about this? And I guess we could ask about the UK as well. I mean, are any governments intervening to regulate these online sort of sources of cheap dopamine, and TikTok especially?
Yeah, so there's a lot of activity, especially in the UK and the United States, about putting in guardrails, particularly for children, right? I think the idea is that adults will do what they will do, but we really need to protect children, minors, from exposure to these types of websites. What's become difficult, as I may have mentioned, is that there's a lot of concern about privacy and tracking as well on the internet, and the kind of privacy concerns bump up right against the guardrail concerns. So, for example, in some states in the United States now, they're making people register with a third party to confirm that they're 21 years or older in order for them to go on a pornographic website. So these are the types of things that are being looked at.
And then I know I need to let you go, but I just have one more. Can we still have the downside, the depression, if our drug of choice is a good source of pleasure?
Yeah, so this, like, let's say exercise, which we consider to be difficult to do, but we feel better afterwards. We don't go into that dopamine deficit state that creates craving. But more and more people are presenting with like exercise addictions. Why? Because exercise has been drugified with all of the technology, with the links to social media, the Strava, rankings, comparisons. So now you've taken a thing that was healthy and turned it to something that has a big potential for addiction. So, we have to intervene there the same way, where we ask people to actually fast or take a break from exercise for a period of time to reset reward pathways, because that can certainly become a very strong and compulsive loop that can cause harm, right? Injuries, exercising despite injuries, a lot of time away from friends and family spent exercising. So again, your opportunity costs. I mean, just a little something I discuss in my book, but it was one of my favorite things I discovered in my research is scientists used to think that rats running on a running wheel was just a sign of sort of physical vigor and physical release. But then they realized that actually some rats got addicted to the running wheels, that moving in three-dimensional space causes, euphoria for rats, kind of like a roller coaster for humans, and that some rats will actually run on the running wheel till they die. If you put a rat in nature, all kinds of animals will run in the running wheel as its independent reinforcer, even in, the true rat park, which is Mother Nature. So something about the ways in which technology applied to these activities can make them so reinforcing that what was once healthy can become unhealthy.
And then one final question, and I will let you go. The How-To Academy is going to kill me, but the psychedelic, there's a lot of movement in the psychedelics at the moment in terms of treating mental health. Do you worry about the sort of the dark side of that in terms of the psychedelics, in terms of addiction and dopamine? Because it is a very
Yeah, so this is I can't do justice to this question because there's so much to say here, but to just briefly condense it, the little evidence we have for therapeutic use of psychedelics is based on using it as an adjunct to psychotherapy, where the main vehicle for recovery is the psychotherapy. So, for example, the looking at using ecstasy in the treatment of PTSD. That's in the context of like 56 psychotherapy sessions, right? I mean, most of us would get better with 56 psychotherapy sessions with a qualified therapist. And then they've punctuated it here and there with a little bit of ecstasy. Unfortunately, that has now been picked up by the lay press and disseminated as this idea that psychedelics in and of themselves are therapeutic. We have no evidence for that. And in fact, we have mounting evidence for harms because people's responses to psychedelics are very idiosyncratic. Some people will have a positive response, and an equal number will probably have a negative response, including frank psychosis, violence, suicidal. And this is all of why LSD was made a Schedule I drug, back in the heyday of the LSD movement in the 60s, because it was found to idiosyncratically incite horrible psychosis and violence. I can tell you, I'm working with families here, young people who went over to Oakland to get some microdosing psilocybin to help their depression, went into a psychotic suicidal state and jumped off the bridge and died, right? So these need to be regulated. We need so much more evidence. It is so premature and scary the way that we have people now, at least in the United States, who are thinking that they're going to, buy capsules on Amazon and put a little bit of a mushroom in there and take it twice a day and treat their depression. It's really concerning.